Hey guys, welcome back. It's Josh with the Financial Advisor Car Guy. This week you're going to see a huge window over my head here, and with that you can tell I'm probably sitting inside my wife's Mach-E. What I wanted to do is do a little bit more thorough kind of examination of what we see here in the cabin. This week we're going to talk a little bit about this car, how it drives, how it runs, how everything operates. Here we go. So first things first, if I go ahead and push the start button, all right, we're gonna see, oh, radio's on. All right, so we're gonna start by looking at this front cluster. This is the speedometer, right? MPH, that just tells us how fast we're going. You're gonna see the car is ready. And then over here, you're gonna see the range off to the left. The battery percentage below does not, that's purely battery percentage. It doesn't calculate the percentage based on the range. It calculates the range based on the percentage. So you'll see I just put my seatbelt on. So there's an indication, there's an indicator here that says there's one person with a seatbelt on. The car has 7,100 miles on it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm gonna be driving here in just a moment, but before I do, I'm gonna kind of show you this middle screen here. So it's on the map, but let's see. Okay, so we're gonna close that. Great, here's a map. It's noon. You can see I'm in Bend, Oregon. The elevation here is 3,707 feet. I'm pointed northwest. I do not have the phone connected to CarPlay because I didn't want it to interrupt the video. You can see heated seats, heated steering wheel, air conditioning, all the creature comforts that you need for the air conditioning and the heater and all that stuff. We've got the rear defroster, front defroster, passenger seat. For whatever reason, the heated seats are on, so I'm going to turn that off, which is cool. And it's currently 76 degrees in here. So it's really user-friendly. It really is. It's very intuitive. It's got Alexa up here. It's got, I can go into the options and really kind of go through the menus and change all sorts of stuff. One thing my kids absolutely love is if we go to settings, let's see down here, let's see, somewhere in here. Yeah, ambient lighting, check this out. So on the floor, down on the floorboards down here, now you can't see it because it's sunny in daytime, but right now those lights are blue. And so you can change it, you can make them green, I can make them orange, I can make them purplish pink, whatever it is. So now I have them on blue because that's what my wife had them on. When we bought the car, it was by default on red. And I don't know, maybe because this car is red. So now if we go back up to, let's see. I want to try, if we go to vehicle. No, that's not what I want. Let me go back. Let's go back into the car menu. Drive modes, that's what I was looking for. So this is the heart of the EV. It's got 3 modes: whisper, engage, and unbridled. Now, I'm gonna show you guys something here with unbridled. Now, unbridled is basically full unleashed. The car's got the most power. It's much more on demand. It accelerates much faster, all that stuff. What's funny is in the most recent software update, which you can see right up here, there was a download that was completed that added our Alexa feature, and it added a propulsion sound. So if I hit the info there, here's what it tells me, right? Propulsion sound is generated to enhance the driving experience. The sound level is mode dependent, meaning there's minimum sound on whisper, moderate sound on engage, and maximum for unbridled. So if we leave there, look at my gauge cluster, I'm gonna hit engage. Nothing happens, except it's highlighted on the screen. Now, I'm gonna hit unbridled. Nothing happens, except it's now got this cool design there. Now, if I put it in drive, now I'm parked in a parking space, so I don't wanna go forward or else I'll hit a curb. But if I put it into drive, I'm in drive. Man, nothing still happens. Interesting. Before, and this might change the moment I start to actually roll, but here you can see I'm in drive. There were the same lines that you see right in here on either side of the word unbridled that would pop up on the dash. Let me do this. Let's go back to whisper. Okay, I'm gonna go in reverse. I'm gonna back out of my spot. You can see my backup cameras gonna hit that wall. Put it in drive. Oh, it's got a backup camera and a backup beep sensor, which you'll hear. You might have heard that. But yeah, as I drive, now let's go to unbridled. It still didn't do it. It's strange. Oh, you can see all the dust on the screen though. Okay, oh, I see. You see that little orange in the top part of my gauge cluster there? Right up here. On either side of the MPH, you're gonna start to see, oh, let's get out of this guy's way. You see it start to fill in as I drive. Now sun's in my face and everything is blinking, but you can see the orange is kind of lighting up as I drive. Well, anyway, at full tilt, a lot of the screen is orange and it looks rad. And you can hear it, right? That propulsion sound, like it said, was one of those things. So I'm gonna go ahead and quickly switch my camera around and be right back with you. Okay, so I switched the camera around. I also put it back on Whisper. Now Whisper is the mode that I use when we're driving around town. It seems to be the most economical from a battery standpoint. Now, what the difference for unbridled, engaged, or I'm sorry, Whisper, unbridled, and engaged are the three, those are the three settings. Whisper, again, that's mostly around town. You don't have quite as much torque, you don't have quite as much power. It's more designed for conservation of the battery. The inverse of that is going to be unbridled, which uses a ton of power. The battery can drain relatively quickly if you keep it in unbridled all the time. It's going to be much more throttle responsive. So if I barely touch the pedal, it lurks forward. There's a lot more torque, there's a lot more power. And then engage is kind of the in-between setting. It's probably more well-rounded, if you will. Now we usually leave the car in Whisper. If I'm driving it for an extended period of time, maybe today, I'll put it in engage, or unbridled, at least engage, but probably unbridled just because it's a lot more fun. I'm still driving through town, so I'm not going to get too into, kind of the blue cruise, which I want to talk about until we get out to the highway. But, I started to say that the range, the mileage is calculated based on the battery percentage, not the other way around. What I mean by that is the battery, it's got what I don't know exactly what Ford calls it, but it's got some sort of smart cell type of technology where, if the thing's got 100%, depending upon the weather, depending upon the temperature, depending upon driving conditions, the range is always being recalculated. So sometimes, on a full charge on a hot summer day, it might say we've got 320 miles remaining on a full charge on 100% battery. This morning when we came out to the car, my wife drove it this morning, it was at 100% and it said 240 miles was the max. Now it got down to 39 degrees or something last night. And even though we parked this car in a temperature controlled garage, it's still cold out there. So, with all that said, 240, that's kind of what it based the rest of the tank, if you will, right? The rest of the battery. So I'm looking at my range right now and it says 211 miles and I'm at 90%. So I went more than 23 miles, which would have been 10%, or 24 miles, which would have been 10% of the estimated battery life based on where things started this morning when she unplugged the car. So, it's not a perfect science. I would say the battery percentage is probably more important to watch than the range, because if I'm driving in a straight line downhill, you're not going to deplete the battery quite as rapidly as you would, if you're accelerating uphill naturally. And that's the same with the internal combustion engine, right? You're going to save fuel when you're coasting down a hill as opposed to accelerating up one. That's not different. But anyway, so the extended range battery that we've got in this car does take us to about 320 miles under optimal driving conditions. But again, it is weather pending. And, that's one thing that, is maybe more of a downside or a fault to an EV. So if you're out shopping for one, be aware of that. The extended range may get the same distance as the non-extended range under opposite conditions, meaning, the extended range in poor conditions might be, you know, as good or better than the standard range in its best conditions. And so, I don't know. It's just one of those things you got to be aware of. And it really depends on what your use of the car is. For us, it's mostly around town. We have taken it on a couple of road trips just because we could. But in 2 weeks, we're going out to the Oregon coast. It's about a 3.5 hour drive. And we decided that we are going to take the truck. But it's also because we're going to be driving through some severe weather, potentially. We're going to go over a mountain pass, which gets snow. So we're going to drive that truck. I just got new tires on the truck, which we'll talk about in the future. But we're getting on the highway here in just a minute. But yeah, so I put the car back in Whisper for now. Once we get out on the highway, I'll put it back in Engage, or I might go to Unbridled. And then I'll kind of talk to you guys about the Blue Cruise, which, you know, basically Blue Cruise is Ford's autopilot or self-driving feature, or cruise control in some cases. Now, cruise control is the default setting. It does have a distance monitor, so if I get too close to the guy in front of me, it knows and it'll slow me down. If the guy in front of me accelerates and takes off, the car will accelerate, not quite to what they're at, but to whatever I have my cruise control set at. So here we go. We're going to merge onto the highway, and I'm going to switch it to Unbridled there. So now you can't hear it, I'm sure, but I hear a little bit exhaust, which, you know, it's just piped through the speakers. It's kind of hokey, but the idea is it's to enhance your driving experience. It's supposed to make it feel like you're doing more than you are. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is switch the camera around and do this safely. Traffic's not moving very fast, so we'll do it. But I'm going to show you guys my screen here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we're looking at. So you guys can see here, if you look to the far right, speed limit 45. I told you I was on a highway. Now this is just kind of a bypass, a highway bypass through Bend. I'm driving exactly the speed limit. There's a gentleman merging in front of me, and so I can't accelerate too quickly. But that red line that you see right there, that just means I hit kind of the rumble strip or the edge of the lane, so to speak. And so what this does is it tells me when I go in and out of my lane. So for example, if I get too close to the right line, here we go, it's going to tell me, and it will do it on the same on the left. If I go, you know, across without using my blinker. Now, even if I use my blinker to change lanes, which I'm going to do right now, see how that line went gray, both lines went gray, and then it recalibrates to the lane that I'm in now, and bingo, now I'm showing green across the board, as long as I stay in my lane. So it's kind of neat that it has that feature, but it doesn't really do anything other than the steering wheel vibrates a touch. And so that steering wheel vibrating a touch just tells me that, you know what, I'm not in my lane. I'm either too far to the right or too far to the left, and I need to wake up. I assume that's what it's for. Now, if I hit cruise control, you can see here, those blue lines in front of me, it's getting ready and it's measuring to see if anybody's in front of me. Nobody is for quite some time, so you can kind of see. But it's going to stay at 64, which is probably way too fast. Let me turn that down a little bit. But a car just merged in front of me, and you saw the car go from 64 to 56. And everybody's going 57 or 58 anyway, so that's fine. But, you know, what's going to end up happening is if I were on the interstate, I'll turn that off. Instead of these green lines on either side, it actually puts a blue circle around the car, and it's kind of like a radar. At that point, the car takes over, and it will self-drive. It will turn with the road. It'll turn as I turn. I can more or less take my hands off the wheel. Now, it does give me a warning if I do that. It says, keep hands ready, or keep hands on wheel, maybe it even says. But ideally, you're not gonna just let go and let the car drive. It won't allow that. It beeps at you, and I mean, you can do it, I guess, but it just chimes over and over and over. It's like a seatbelt chime, letting you know to keep a hand on the wheel. Now, the Blue Cruise feature is not the same as Tesla's self-driving. I can't just key in an address and hit go, and the car won't drive me there. It doesn't know when there's stop signs. It doesn't know when a light is red. It doesn't know when the light turns green. What it'll do is slow you down and stop you behind somebody, and it will take off and go. But I'm not super confident in the technology yet. It's still pretty new, and I'm just not sure that it's really up to that particular task. I'm sure that in future download updates, the Blue Cruise will be better. It will get better. Like I said, I can't use the true Blue Cruise self-driving feature in Central Oregon. We don't have an interstate, so to speak. Highway 97 runs vertically from California to Washington, but it's not a heavily, I mean, it's a heavily traveled highway, but it's, I don't know what the word is, but it's not a very wide highway. There's not a lot of, it's 2 lanes each way. In some places it's 1 lane each way. And so it's not like your true interstate freeway. And, you know, if I were to be further west and if I were on I-5 allows the Blue Cruise to work. This thing does have a pretty good idea of the network of roads. The GPS works exceptionally well. It gets you where you want to go. It's very up to date. You know, the maps are up to date. Where we live, there's constant road work happening, constant infrastructure expansions. There's new subdevelopments going in all the time. And it seems like the maps are incredibly accurate and up to date. So anytime roads change or are added, the car seems to know. So all that to say, it's very good. I'm very pleased. It's a fun car to drive. It's exceptionally quiet. I'm not sure if you guys hear too much background noise, but I hear the tires more than I hear anything else. You know, again, no exhaust note. It's dead silent. You don't hear an engine running. You basically just hear the tires on the asphalt, and you hear traffic outside, which is not the story in any of my other vehicles. You're going to hear the engine. You're going to hear the tires. You're going to hear all that stuff. But the engine and exhaust notes and all that, completely consume you, especially in the R8 or even the pickup, but or the Mustang for that matter. But in here, yeah, it's a much quieter ride, but it's super comfortable. I really, really like it. It's actually a fantastic car to drive. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it. I would very much encourage people to pursue one. If you're in the market for an EV and you want to, see what they're all about, I would encourage you to drive one. I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with, there's certainly nothing wrong with Tesla or any of the other EV competitors, but most consumers are fairly price conscious. And while I think that Rivian builds a great vehicle, is it worth the premium? I'm not going to say no because I've never driven one. I've never owned one. I want to give it a fair assessment, but what I can tell you is the bang for the buck on the Mach-E is fantastic. And if you watched last week's episode, if you haven't, please do. I talk about the depreciation of this particular car and what some financial experts and analysts in the automotive world are telling us. This car's not going to depreciate that much over the next 5 years, given demand and supplies and all that stuff, as well as the tax credits that are going to help you on the front end. The resale will still be there in 5 years based on what we know today. Now, a recession may change all that, but I doubt we're still in a recession in 5 years. So all that to say, pay attention, see what's out there. The market is always changing. So what I tell you one week might be, false the next week, but that's kind of what I want to do is I want to share with you guys and keep you up to date and give you good information to help you make good decisions moving forward. So that's all I got for you today with that. May every investment you make be a good one, and I'll see you next time.